Hi guys, Krein here. In this video I'm going to talk to you about my electrically conductive Emerson Super Roadhouse. So when the Roadhouse first came out, I was really drawn to the design. I wanted to pick one up and have it modified in my usual way. If you look back through my videos, you can actually find that knife. I got it all the way up to the part where I would have it laser engraved, and some point before that, Emerson came out with a super version, and with my love for larger knives, I realized I'd much rather have the super version than the regular version. So I sold it to a friend local here to me in Hawaii, and that helped me fund getting the Super Roadhouse made. At this time, a couple years ago, lightning strike carbon fiber and super collider knives from several custom makers were just starting to come out, and that was a very interesting material combination to me. So I called up the individual at ATI Metals, which is the company that manufactured the superconductor material, and purchased some from him, sent it off to Ferrrk. Ferrrk made the titanium liners, backspacer, and bolsters out of the superconductor material. Nathawut supplied the titanium bowl pivot, and Pete Gray made these lightning strike carbon fiber scales for me, along with doing all of the anodization of the titanium and making an oversized titanium thumb disc. He anodized it all in kind of the copper color that titanium can be anodized to. Superconductor material, let's talk a little bit about that. Hopefully my camera is focusing. This specific pattern is called by Gary Runyon at ATI Metals the feather pattern. And superconductor material is essentially copper infused with titanium niobium. So the lighter colored sections are an alloy of titanium and niobium, and the copper is obviously the copper colored section of this material. Now the copper over time can take on a patina, and the titanium niobium that can be anodized just like any other titanium. I wanted to leave it in the more natural state just because I like the way that it looks. Let me give you a little bit of the history on the superconductor material. If you've heard of the Large Hadron Collider, this essentially in the 80s, around the Reagan era, America was going to build their own version of this. It was going to be our superconducting super collider, which was a federally financed project. It was abandoned in 1993, and it would have been capable of accelerating subatomic particles to energy levels 40 times that previously achieved by researchers. For reasons of national prestige and international economic competitiveness, the Ronald Reagan administration in 1982 encouraged U.S. high-energy scientists to devise a challenging national accelerator project. Physicists responded with the plans for the most ambitious particle accelerator ever attempted, the superconducting super collider. It was to be a proton collider, far more energetic than existing ones, employing the superconducting magnetic technology recently developed at the Fermi National Laboratory in Illinois. The primary justification for the machine was the search for a particle known as the Higgs boson, which, if you follow news, the Large Hadron Collider actually discovered last year the Higgs boson particle, otherwise known as the God particle. It's a particle that, by studying that, I think sort of gives them insight into the Big Bang and how that would have worked. The machine was produced 40 TeV protons. That's getting into a little bit too much science here. So I'm just reading about the project itself. The federal funding for the machine required justification, support from the Texas congressional delegation, and the promise of $1 billion towards the project from the state of Texas led the House of Representatives, faced with more than double the price tag. They voted overwhelmingly to kill the project. By then, $2 billion had been spent. The superconducting magnets had been tested. 1/3 of the ring had been excavated, and 2 teams of 1,000 physicists and engineers from around the world were working out detailed designs of the 2 enormous particle detectors to observe and analyze proton collision in the TeV energy range. So this would have been a really amazing project, but basically the American government decided that we didn't have the money for it, and presumably the material that had already been produced for it went into storage for a very long time. ATI Metals, the company that originally produced it, I don't know how long they had it or if it was ever tied up to where they couldn't do anything with it. But at some point, Gary Runyon from ATI Metals started having sections of it wire EDM'd, I believe it's called, where they basically cut it with a wire and selling off portions of it through the company. And a lot of knife makers, started building knives out of it. I know, probably going to say this wrong, Truzula, I'm sure I'll be corrected. I believe he makes a lot of knives with this combination, actually, of superconductor material and lightning strike carbon fiber. The lightning strike carbon fiber is more or less a traditional carbon fiber, but it has copper strands wove throughout, and it's used by Boeing and perhaps other aerospace companies on certain aircraft to provide them resistance from lightning strikes. It'll dissipate the energy from a lightning strike on the aircraft. One thing to note about the material itself, this lightning strike carbon fiber, is that because there are basically strands of copper going throughout the material, if it's improperly worked, you can have little pieces of copper sort of sticking out, poking, catching on things, fabrics and whatnot. Pete Gray has a lot of experience working with this material, so there's none of that with this knife, and I don't expect that to develop just because of the way that he machines it and handles it and finishes it. But that is something I've read has happened to some people's knives that were made with this material. So it's definitely a very interesting material. Creates a very unique looking knife. I really like how Pete anodized the titanium to match the copper. It gives it a really finished look that leaving the titanium bare would not have done. The copper material is quite a bit heavier, noticeably heavier than titanium. I'll put this on my scale, and I'll put the overall weight in the description. But needless to say, this isn't going to be a knife for the faint-hearted. I don't think I've actually shown the video. I've been shown the video. I don't think I've shown the knife or the blade on the video. I've been too busy talking about everything. This was reground by Tom Krein. It more or less keeps the original grind of the knife. Sharpened up quite a bit, and I think that the secondary bevel is bigger than it otherwise would be. Of course, it's an Emerson design. Pete Gray worked on it. ITSLaser did the engraving on the blade. Tom Krein did the regrind, and Ferrrk did most of the handle work, with the exception of the scales, which Pete Gray did. This is also a Pete Gray bead, anodized in copper tone. And there's jewelling on the inside of the liner. Thank you for watching.